The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those Knuckleheads of Liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We are coming to you on September 19th, 2022. Boy, I tell you, it seems like every day is just one day closer to the abyss with the Biden administration. But fortunately, we have something different for you today. We have a special guest, and I'll introduce you to them in our panel. So in our upper left-hand corner, we have our screaming Eagle of Freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. In our lower left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have Chase and Remington of the Tax Show, and that is a podcast show out of Utah. So we're going to enjoy talking with them today a little bit about some of their experiences and some of their thoughts on some of the topics we'll be talking about. So jumping right into it.
You should introduce yourself, Jason.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. I think that's actually in the auto intro, though. So I don't know.
Well, that's true. Okay, that's true. Okay.
Yeah,
they
but
can
who
have a
listens
double
to
dose.
that?
There you go.
Yeah, no one listens to that. We want to ad lib.
Okay. Well, today, since we have Chase and Remington, I thought we might just get a little bit of flavor about what politics is like in Utah for our listeners. Certainly it is a red state, but there's been some interesting, I guess, issues come up with COVID where, we see maybe streaks of authoritarianism in some place. And so I thought I'd just run through a quick few stories and then find out, sort of hear from Chase and Remington what they characterize Utah politics like. So one of the things I thought was kind of interesting is as I was doing a little bit of research for the show is Utah actually had a mask mandate there. So, we thought we were the lucky ones that were the only lucky ones that got that here in California, but I guess not. So it sounds like you guys, even being in a red state, were initially hit with a mask mandate there. But then you guys elected a different governor, it sounds like, and he's sort of on the other side of that mask mandate, I guess, getting into it with some of the, more, I guess, local big city politicians, I guess, there. And there's also a push to ban the selling of Russian vodka, which is kind of odd. It almost seems like something sort of a pro-Biden guy might do nowadays, to say they're on the right side. I don't know, but he's also looking to require porn filters on phones, and there's also some bans on transgender athletes in girls' sport, and certainly I think we have libertarians on both sides of that issue, I suppose. So what do you guys, what's your sort of flavor for Utah politics? Because it seems like sort of maybe some mixed signals coming out of Utah.
How do I get into this? Let's say Utah's mask mandate got me kicked out of Costco at least once. So we have our fair share of authoritarianism here. Basically, the way I see Utah politics, and the way a lot of people see it, is it's a single party state, which means whatever the flavor or kind of idea going around between the Republican Party tends to become the policy. I'll give you an example. My own grandfather votes Democrat, but is registered Republican in Utah so that he can vote for the farthest left-leaning Republican in all of the primaries, because that's how he can get anyone that he would like elected here. And what that means is there's not a whole lot of pushback between different ideas. Now, when you saw that article where the Salt Lake City mayor was angry at Governor Cox for getting rid of mask mandates in state legislature, Salt Lake is deep blue. Salt Lake and Park City are deep blue. Pretty much the rest of the state is very red. There are a couple other pockets that get a little more blue. But mostly what you see is the Salt Lake mayor will take whatever pot shot she can at the entire rest of the state so that she looks good amongst her base, and try to keep the mask mandates as long as possible. Governor Cox was very happy to implement mask mandates. I was I have not liked him from the beginning, I'll be frank. But lots of his decisions have greatly frustrated me. Things like even going on, saying he's on one side of an argument, and then he goes into like a public video and he'll announce his pronouns to the chagrin of all of his supporters. And it's a mess. Not my favorite governor we've ever had, but it's what we ended up with because, in my opinion, it's because he got the green light from the previous governor as the one that everyone should vote for. Everyone liked the previous governor, so they just voted for him.
But you guys have a very interesting dynamic in your U.S. senators. Mike Lee is a solid liberty-minded guy, but I think Romney have gone off the rails for the most part.
Oh, I keep forgetting Romney is huge.
We're not. Yeah, I know. We're not the only state that's mixed like that. You remember, we also get Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul from the same state as well. So
True.
that tends to go hand in hand, as far as I can tell. I was actually talking with Mike Lee about that at Freedom Fest, and we both heaved some heavy sighs.
What really bothers me about this particular situation in Utah is that I voted for Romney in 2012 or whenever the elect was, and this is one of the votes I've truly regretted.
Me too.
You guys can leave.
So this gets worse. I actually voted for him to be the senator here because I was like, oh, that'll give us some clout. We will have a junior senator who already has all of the
Yes.
pull as a senior senator. It'll be like we have two senior senators. Voted for him, and just 3 days later, immediately regretted it. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Thanks, Jason.
Been there, done that.
We're just curious, is there any oxygen in Utah for the Libertarian Party, or is it pretty much just sort of scooped up into a wing of the Republican Party there?
It's pretty much scooped up into the Republican Party. It's not that it's non-existent. Like, I just joined the Utah Mises Caucus last night, actually. But it exists. But if you want to get much done, it's pretty much scooped up into the Republican Party. That's why we have Mike Lee, who votes very libertarian in all of his policy votes, but is in the Republican Party.
It's funny. There was a billboard. So I'm from Alaska. We don't have billboards in Alaska, but anyway, there was a billboard here in Utah, and it was like, Mike Lee voted against helping Ukraine. And I was thinking, like, yeah, good for him. And then I was like, oh, wait a second. His opponent probably put that up there.
You will see a lot of We Stand With Ukraine stuff in Utah. Lots of pro-Ukraine billboards and things around here. And I think that kind of stems from I read a news article that put it very well. It was like the violent politeness of Utah politics. We are going to be polite. We're going to stand by the people who are wronged, and we're going to do whatever it takes to look like we are very kind. And I think that's what kind of has morphed into Utah's right-wing support of Ukraine, to my chagrin.
So those would be a lot of the people who are kindly banning Russian vodka.
It's the politics here are interesting. Now that you pointed out, like, I look at it and go, oh well, it's pretty simple. I mean, whatever the Republican Party of Utah says is pretty much what goes. But at the same time, they have some weird positions because they're not opposed. They pretty much do what they want, and they can be weird at times.
Okay. Well,
there's a tax for everything, like a tax or permission for everything. It's probably not as bad as California, but like coming from Alaska to here, it just feels like you have to have government permission or pay the crown for everything you do.
Especially in the city he's in, where he has a city tax that you have to add on top of that. Yeah, I think
like registering my cars is like, it's stupid. It's like, man, I just spent the money on the cars. Like,
they actually have an additional fee when you buy the car that isn't part of your registration. You have to pay an added fee based on the age of your car. The newer the car, the higher the fee.
Yeah. So like the more money you spend on your car, the more the government takes from you twice, because they'll tax you for it when you buy it, and then they'll tax you for the registration.
Yeah, that's California.
What's funny, I was going to say, even though California is a one-party state, there's no parallel in the sense that nothing goes Republican here. There's no mixed bag. It's all hard left.
I mean, you guys are on the front lines over there.
You definitely feel the Mitt Romney influence here, where a lot of people see him as very principled because he'll stand up against his own party often.
That's what it is. Oh,
Yeah, they'll see that as principled because he stands up against his party. He'll stick to his guns, and it's like, well, except his gun was different last week.
his gun was pointed at our party.
Exactly. Yeah, when he was running for president, he was telling us all about his conservative principles. He's a conservative businessman and all of that crap. I mean, I didn't truly believe it. But it was good enough for me to get my vote. And then the man going to the Senate, and then he looked like some monster from Mars with a philosophy nobody understands.
Yeah. Well, the people. I have a firm belief that majority of the people who end up being the presidential candidate have to have a lot of establishment support, and he had a lot of that. So I think that shows in what he's been voting for recently.
Yeah.
I didn't mind that. You're right. You're absolutely right, Chase. But I didn't mind none of that. Okay. It's just that he talked this good game while he was running for president, and then went into the Senate and become something else completely. I mean, I can't even recognize the man that I voted for. I mean, I expected you go to the Senate, okay, fine, there are compromises you have to make to get things done. I understand and I accept that as part of politics. But this man have just morphed into a green-eyed monster.
Well,
he looks like a politician. He looks like a good politician. He doesn't look like he's crazy or something. And then, he's also a member of the church that's a majority church in Utah. And I think that played a pretty significant role too. It's like, oh, well, I trust people around me in my community, and he's a member of my community, so I trust him.
Yeah. And
but doesn't he still have a house in La Jolla?
I'm not sure, actually.
He used to have a big old house in La Jolla where I live. Well, I don't live by La Jolla.
Yeah, what I do know is that I'm no fan of his. We've called him the wolf in sheep's clothing more than a few times on our show.
Well, I tell you, speaking of hypocrites, this is a great segue to go into talking about what's going on in Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, no, that's perfectly
you used the word.
Okay, I'll say it for him. Hypocrite.
There you go.
You should be banned and cancelled.
It was too good of a segue. Just had to use it. But just for those well, for those who are living in a cave or have not been paying attention to the news cycle in the last week, so Ron DeSantis has sort of, I guess, one-upped his other border state governors in their game of sending migrants to the states that claim to be completely for almost unregulated immigration, I guess. It's the best way to call it. And he has started flying these migrants to places like Martha's Vineyard, where the elites of the Democrat Party happen to live, those 1%ers there. And people like Obama and other, leaders in their group. And what was interesting about this story is that when he sent them there, after hearing for years and years from them about how these, even illegal migrants are always a net economic positive is what we've been told the whole time. Ron DeSantis decided he'd share just 50% or 50 migrants, just 50 of that pool of wealth from Florida. And the people of Martha's Vineyard freaked out and said it was a humanitarian crisis. And within 24 hours, had these migrants sent to a military base off the island. So I just, it's kind of hard to believe. Now, certainly this is generating a lot of other potential issues. California's Gavin Newsom has said that he should be investigated by the DOJ for potentially tricking these migrants into getting on these planes, is what he's claiming. But I don't know. I mean, this is supposedly a sanctuary state, I guess, or a sanctuary city, sending them to Boston and Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. I thought they wanted them there. you would think they're kryptonite now. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think about this? I mean, this seems like the ultimate NYMBY of stories on migration. It's wonderful unless it's in my backyard.
This is the ultimate hypocrisy that we could think about, okay? Because Joe Biden, just before the governor started moving, both Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis started moving migrants into these cities, into these so-called sanctuary cities, Joe Biden was doing the very same thing, but he was doing it in the dead of night. We have video on it where he was moving people all over the country, whether by bus or by plane, or nobody had a problem with that then, or these people were celebrating it. All of these people, the media and all of these Democratic governors, they were celebrating this thing. But now that we start to have these sanctuary cities actually experience what the border states are experiencing, all of a sudden, it's a humanitarian crisis. It's not a humanitarian crisis when Joe Biden opened the border and allowed people to take this dangerous journey where people are dying and being raped. It's not a humanitarian crisis then. It's only a humanitarian crisis when you take these migrants and put them into these so-called sanctuary cities, and all of a sudden, these Republican governors, they are the next thing to Hitler and every kind of fascist name you could find to call them. And that is what the left is doing right now. They can't even live with their own hypocrisy.
Yeah, I've been looking at this story just eyes wide open, unbelieving of it, because it's like these sanctuary cities have yelled about how you guys are welcome to come here. Please don't come here. Please stay down there where it's hard on them. But you're welcome to come here. And then as soon as they show up, it's straight panic. With, like you said, at Martha's Vineyard, within 24 hours, 50 migrants had to be bussed off the island. They can't be allowed here. It's a sick. Is that not the obvious show that what they were saying with these sanctuary cities is just a virtue signal? There was nothing behind it. It was, we know we're never going to have to actually support what we're saying here, and we can just buy some votes by saying it. So we're just going to say it, and then as soon as they see anything actually happen with it, they panic, they freak out, they ship them off the island, and their defense for it is that we don't have the infrastructure here to handle it. You should handle it in the border states. Yeah. And the border states are saying, "What do you mean? You think this poor city that is being overrun by coyotes and legal actual immigrants has the ability, or actual migrants, has the ability to handle this, but the ultimate wealthy island of Martha's Vineyard doesn't have the wherewithal to do it?" Yeah. Why? How does that make any sense? Right. It blows my mind.
Well, plus they're bordering the Atlantic Ocean, a historical source from which people came from Europe and other countries to the United States. So I call them a border city myself.
There's always these ideas in politics of like, hey, we think this will work, or we say this will work, whether they think it or not. And so it's nice when you actually get to put it to the test. You know, we talk about like gun rights and stuff in different cities and like how that affects crime. You talk about this immigration and Martha's Vineyard stuff. And it's like, look, you want to try it? Let's try it. That's the beauty of the Republic. We can try different things in different places, but you eat your words, whether they're good or bad.
Yeah.
But the point is though that when you see these sort of things happening, but now we have our governor trying to weaponize the Justice Department against these Republican governors for doing the very same thing that the president, who is a member of our governor's party, they're trying to weaponize the Justice Department against these Republican governors for doing the very same thing that Joe Biden is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and for doing the thing that they asked them to do.
Exactly.
Right. Maybe they didn't say send it to our like personal city, our backyard, but you know, like our arms are open. We care, you know, and like, okay, let's do it. And see what happens.
Yeah, diversity went from being their strength to their kryptonite in a heartbeat. But it's like these guys are on an island. It's sort of like they put up a moat to keep the undesirables away, right? And suddenly, these people who they claimed were desirable showed up, and I guess they found out why that moat was there. But it is funny though, because libertarians for the most part are pro-immigration. I mean, most libertarians would like to see somewhat close to open borders, something like that. But the issue is though that there has to be no distortions bringing people in, and I mean this is part of the problem, right? I mean the left, they all stood up there, and maybe we could get the article up here too, James. But like for instance, Reason had a story here where they're essentially coming down against DeSantis, saying, "Hey, look, you shouldn't be playing these games. They're net positive and all that." But that's kind of what he was trying to show, is that, hey, well, if these guys really think they're a net positive, then you're free to take some of that net positive. But when the Democrats stood there in the presidential primary, they all stood up, all umpteen of them, however that many that was, and raised their hands and said that anybody who shows up here should have free health care. And these types of signals are distortions on a free market of people moving back and forth. It's not, these sorts of things can actually cause a lot more people than would normally come here if it's just a voluntary issue. I mean, do you guys have any thoughts on this whole sort of split in the libertarian ethos on migration?
Well, that's the thing, right? Is what is America, and what are the incentives that are inherent therein? If those incentives include things like free healthcare and free everything, then open borders is a great way to crash everything really fast. But you look at Milton Friedman and what he said. He's like, look, open borders is fantastic, but you can't have any perks besides freedom, essentially, right? And then, obviously the other side is like, well, we do have those things, so we need to have not necessarily closed borders, but controlled borders. And I mean, all of it makes sense, but the open borders with all of the I know that people don't see them as problems, with all of the systems,
the perks
in place, the perks, right? And that's a recipe for disaster. But if you either cut the perks or cut the border, or maybe not include the perks for people who are coming in for the first few years or until they get green card or residency or citizenship or whatever, then it's maybe a little bit different. But if it's just like, hey, we have Mexico right here, and the people in Mexico want money, and we have money, we'll just let Mexico have all our money. It doesn't compute for a functional economy, in my humble opinion.
But politicians will always create the distortions, you see, because they're always looking for votes. And this is what exactly the Democratic Party is looking for right now by opening up the borders. They will always create these distortions. And it doesn't matter how much we pontificate about it. That is what is going to happen. But I have a more fundamental problem with this open borders, which is our sovereignty. Okay, I think this place that we call United States is the sum total of all our sovereignties, and people should not violate our sovereignty just because they damn well feel to do so. I am an immigrant. Okay, I came here legally. Okay, I went through a long process to get to be an American citizen. I am not saying everybody should spend 16 years trying to be an American citizen. I am not suggesting that, but there must be some orderly process by which people get to become part of this thing we call the United States, which is a sovereignty unto itself. So this is where I have my problem with this open borders policy. I really do.
Yeah.
It's almost like the same.
I was going to say, Remington and I have both dealt with immigration. Both of our wives are immigrants.
Yeah.
And my wife particularly, we had a big run-in with the immigration system that delayed our marriage by 9 months and almost got my wife deported. We had to sign a document saying that we wouldn't get married until she went back to Japan and went through months of visa paperwork till we could get married. So I'm intimately aware with what a cluster the immigration system is.
And it's expensive.
And it's very expensive.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm all for making it easier. I think it's far too difficult, which goes against most of what conservatives tend to believe. But I also understand that we can't just give away the farm if we make it easier for people.
True.
We can't go, come here, we'll give you free healthcare, and you don't even have to fill out any paperwork. You don't even have to pay any dues in here. It's all just free. It doesn't work. You can't give away everything for free, especially service like healthcare. You can't just give everything for free and assume that your market will stay afloat.
Indeed.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's almost like telling people they don't have to pay for their student loans.
Yeah. And that is another story for another day. But, you know, since we've been talking about, you know, people being triggered in their safe spaces like Martha's Vineyard, it sounds like a good time for good guys with guns.
All righty. So today's good guys with guns comes. Say again. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right. Today's good guys with guns comes from Middletown, Ohio, on August 9th of this year. And an Amazon delivery driver is not facing any charges after he shot a knife-wielding man on Sunday. The driver was out on his route when the suspect, Christopher Roberts, walked up to him with a knife, according to Middletown police. Obviously, he, the Amazon driver, was in fear, explained Middletown Police Chief David Burke. So, in defense of himself, he was able to discharge a firearm, striking the individual in the leg area. The police report shows Roberts was suspected of being under the influence of drugs when he confronted the Amazon driver. After being shot in the leg, Roberts ran from the scene and was eventually found by police, who took him to Atrium Medical Center, Chief Burke said. Officers were investigating the shooting to determine if it was done in self-defense when Roberts walked out of the hospital. What? The chief explained. Him walking away from the hospital kind of helped clarify the situation. I don't know how, but that the Amazon delivery driver was just defending himself. Chief Burke said, a lesson to future criminals, I'm assuming. Police found Roberts and took him to a different hospital for treatment. It is unknown when he will appear in court, but it's probably pretty certain he will. Well, they didn't say that. I ad-libbed.
Yeah.
Well, it's at least good to know Amazon's taking their safety of their package delivery a little more seriously.
Yeah. Of course.
Cue Amazon divorcing themselves from any association with this armed driver, of course. But I haven't heard. I can't say. But yeah, it seems like these major companies don't usually, well, we don't condone that. In spite of the good outcome in this situation, we don't condone these drivers being armed and so on and so forth.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to share the visual on that one. But real quick, Chase and Remington, are self-defense kind of a good thing in Utah? I mean, they pretty much side on the side of the person defending themselves, or do they, is it like New York where they just throw you in jail and let the guy go who attacked you?
They're pretty good about it here. Yeah, they're pretty good about gun self-defense legislation here. There's even your liberals in Utah tend to have firearms, so they're pretty good.
They need to send some lessons to the rest of the country about that, about those firearms, those liberals in Utah who own firearms.
Well, yeah, you've got liberals in Utah who vote against their gun rights while owning guns at the same time. It's actually
oh no, cue the H word.
Yes.
Okay. Well, hey, we're getting really close to the end of the show, so I think now would be a good time to jump into our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. And so that one takes us to Philadelphia, where they are really struggling with figuring out what a woman is, apparently. I mean, even their politicians aren't really sure. This guy, Fetterman, you can't even remember his first, John Fetterman.
John.
Okay, yeah, he's running for Senate there right now, and is kind of an oddball. He's literally had a stroke. So, I mean, he's not, his words are sometimes a little discombobulated, but this time he seemed to literally know what he's doing because he actually printed this on a t-shirt as well. He introduced himself during a pro-choice rally. He said, "My name is John Fetter Woman." And he said, "Women are the reason we can win. Women are the reason we win." And then he proceeded to hold up a pink shirt that said John Fetter Woman. So I don't know. I mean, just more ridiculous virtue signaling from the left on something they claim they're not even sure what a woman is, and yet Fetterman, sure, he's somehow associated with being a woman. I don't know.
All you gotta do is lift up his T-shirt, and on that T-shirt it said, "My name is John Feder Jackass."
Or maybe at least be consistent and change his first name to Joan or something.
Yes, that would work. Is he the one that's running against Dr. Oz?
Yes, in Pennsylvania. Yes, in Pennsylvania.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's an interesting,
quite the selection.
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting run. You got Dr. Oz against now John. I agree with you. Should be Joan Fetterwoman.
Well, what I'm wondering is if they're this confused in Pennsylvania, are his voters going to not see Fetterwoman on the ballot and then just not vote for him? Because this is not the way my candidate identifies. I'm just not voting for this person.
Right. Until he makes a legal name change, I'm just going to call this the Big Eight, another just vote getting act here.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Oz should use that as a campaign ad. Who are you going to vote for? John Fetterwoman is not on the ballot, so don't vote for anyone. Vote for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't vote for Fetterwoman. This one's not on the ballot. I don't know what to do here.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they'll do a write-in and really mess things up. But
yes.
Well, this is just about the end of our show. So Chase, Remington, do you guys have any last thoughts for the audience, or want to direct them toward your show, or any other things you guys are doing real quick?
Yeah, last thoughts for the audience. I'll start with you can go check out our show over at thetaxshow.com. We're on YouTube over at the Tax Show. Easy to find. We post 6 days a week, so there's lots of content for you guys there. Remington, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, learn how to. Today we're joking and having a good time. Learn how to communicate effectively, because if you're going to be able to further the ideas of liberty, you have to be able to communicate them. So, but have fun with it too. I mean, like, if you can't be funny, like, what's the point of life? No, don't. I mean, if you're not funny, don't go kill yourself. That's a bad message. But,
Awesome. Well, hopefully our listeners will be able to go check out the Tax Show and learn a little bit about liberty and being able to talk to people in a much more proactive way. So thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in, and until the next time, stay free.
Yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.